Thinking about the state of Texas cities in 10 years, it's not child's play. In fact, child's play takes a longer view. My little baby daughter asked me, she's precocious and wonderful and has a tiny lisp, and she said, "Mama, what's Austin gonna look like in 2080?" And as you can imagine, I didn't have a response for her. It's a reminder that what we do today will have lasting and generational impacts, lots of which we can't even possibly conceive right now. Kind of like how we can trace a lot of our collective successes and problems back to decisions that were made 80 and 90 years ago. I know the theme of this talk is Texas cities, but as an Austinite, I'm only an expert at mine. I can speak to some of the other joints like Houston and Dallas and San Antonio. All these cities are drenched in prosperity, growing like weeds, and summers and mosquitoes notwithstanding. They offer a tremendous amount of quality of life to their residents. When we talk about the Texas miracle, the resiliency of our state's economy, we're talking about what happens in these cities. And even though each of these super successful cities has its own distinct flavor and feel, we experience similar challenges and struggles. Because despite how good the narrative of our economy and quality of life is, we know that life isn't perfect for a good chunk of our urban Texans. We're all dealing with inequality, rising poverty, sprawl, traffic, and seemingly unshakable economic and racial segregation. One of the fundamental qualities of a city is proximity. A city is a bunch of people living, learning, trading, traveling, and generally sharing space in close proximity to each other. So when you reach a certain level of population, how you use urban spaces becomes really, really important. And the way Texas cities decided decades ago to use and allocate our space is causing a ton of the problems that we see today. But they're not unsolvable problems, precisely because of the urban principle of proximity, because proximity breeds tolerance. Tolerance breeds compassion, and compassion drives solutions. Right now, Austin is on the verge of making big progress in one solution, and that solution is allowing for more housing. That means more types of housing in more parts of the city. For decades, we dedicated the vast majority of our urban land to large lot, single-family home neighborhoods and the roads that serve them. As more and more people move to Austin and compete for the limited housing stock in high opportunity areas in the central city, lower income residents are finding themselves priced out and locked out. Right now, we're working on revising our city's land development code. And while it's still not a done deal, if it comes out like I hope, it will allow more people to live and work near good jobs, good schools, good childcare, good grocery stores, and good transit. The last one is important, not just for the sake of the environment, but for the sake of mobility. We can move far more people way more efficiently through our limited urban space on a bus or a train than we can if they're still stuck in their cars by themselves. And if we get folks closer to the good stuff, many of them can just walk or even bike and wait for it, even scoot to where they have to go. A major chunk of this new housing along our transit corridors will come in the form of missing middle housing. That's duplexes, that's triplexes, that's quadplexes, that's cottage courts and small apartment buildings. If we lift the de facto bans on these housing types, the hope is we'll free up the market to bring housing supply in better alignment with the intense demand that drives up prices. But new supply in high opportunity areas won't do the trick alone. We have to, and I mean we have to shatter the wall of de facto segregation that exists in all of our cities. We outlawed segregation in schools, restrooms, and on buses decades ago. But residential segregation remains firmly in place, thanks in no small part to our land use rules. Things like large minimum lot sizes and rules that make it difficult to build apartment complexes near single-family homes work to keep the less affluent separate from the affluent. State law doesn't allow cities to force developers to include income-restricted units in any given project. Instead, we can only offer incentives through what are called density bonuses. Generally, if a developer agrees to add a certain amount of affordable units, we'll offer them extra entitlements such as height. That way, they can build more market rate units to subsidize the affordable ones. Austin currently offers density bonuses in specific parts of our city, but the new land development code could allow them everywhere. If we can calibrate them in a way that makes them truly attractive to developers, we can take a big step closer to diversifying our cities. But more housing alone isn't the silver bullet. For communities that have suffered from the negative cyclical effects of segregation for so long, we have to step up and make sure to provide wraparound programs. Things like expanded access to quality education and childcare, professional development and healthcare, including mental health care. Even things a lot of us take for granted, like how to use the internet, how to spend money, how to use a credit card. And because affordability and transportation go hand in hand, we also need to make big, and I mean big, investments in public transit. Houston and Dallas have a head start on everyone else, but even those cities have their struggles. They're both very heavily car dependent. Our existing transportation system, it makes cars an unfunded mandate, a very costly requirement for getting a job, taking your kids to school, going out to eat, or just going to the store for a jug of milk. And when everyone is driving, everyone is stuck in traffic. Even as cities have added countless miles of roads in past decades, traffic has continued to get worse. It's time to provide competitive, affordable, cleaner, and safer alternatives to driving, even if that means reorienting our urban space in a way that makes driving less convenient. So this is all highly ambitious and might be a tall order for Texas cities to fulfill in just 10 years. Sticking with the status quo is going to keep our cities segregated, unaffordable, polluted, congested, and crawling with increasing inequality. We've been able to make good progress here in Austin, thanks in large part to our shift to single-member districts in 2014. That transition also moved local elections from May to November. More people now than ever are voting in our municipal elections, leading to a city that's more representative of our diverse community than ever before. Representation matters. And to get the resources cities need to do the job, we are going to need to work. We need to work to protect the integrity of the 2020 census and to register voters to turn out in next year's elections. It won't be easy, but actions have lasting consequences. And I want to make sure that our cities continue to enable prosperity while also expanding opportunities and access for all of our residents.